Madam Chair. By the way, thank you for putting your suggestion into the National Defense Authorization Bill as it relates to what the gentleman was just speaking about. Acting Administrator Williams, I want to thank the FTA for its recent commitment of $100 million for the South Central Light Rail extension in the city that I used to lead as mayor of Phoenix, Arizona. This federal investment is critical to the future of light rail in South Phoenix. It's a project that we have long fought for, and when completed, it will connect the community to new economic opportunities, jobs, education, healthcare, social services, and more. That project has been ranked as one of the top projects in the United States of America in terms of using public infrastructure to help lift people out of poverty. Over the past year, the local transit agency in Maricopa County, Valley Metro, has been working with the FTA to advance a number of critical transit projects: Tempe Streetcar, Northwest Extension Phase 2, and of course, South Central that I just mentioned. The Tempe Streetcar in particular is at a critical stage, and the pending grant agreement must be approved soon. The deadline for this to be finalized by the FTA is September 1st, prior to the shutdown of the Transit Award Management System, which could occur anywhere from September 20th through October 11th. My understanding is the grant needs to be sent to the Hill for circulation by September 6th at the very latest, while Valley Metro can complete construction of this project under the current letter of no prejudice, and while they may be able to enter in a grant agreement as late as December 15th, Valley Metro will experience serious cash flow issues as soon as September. I understand that all required documentation for approval has been submitted by Valley Metro. Can you provide me with assurances that this project will receive the necessary approvals in time to meet these deadlines?
Absolutely, sir. We have a great working relationship with Scott Smith, the GM there. He has done a terrific job of bringing that project across the finish line. There's been some hiccups with Tempe Streetcar, and he's managed that very well. As you know, you noted in your earlier remarks that we just did a $100 million allocation to his second project in our program, the South Central Light Rail Project, and we have a great working relationship, and you have my commitment to get that done for him.
That's great. Phoenix does have a dedicated funding source. When I was mayor, we did that dedicated funding source. The people of Phoenix overwhelmingly supported a transportation infrastructure investment in our local community, 35 years, $32 billion, and the first program under that election and that source of revenue was the South Central line. As some of the witnesses on the second panel have noted in their written testimony, there have been concerns about revised federal cost share for CIG projects. It's my understanding that you've been working with Valley Metro to resolve those concerns over a proposed federal share for several projects in our region. And I appreciate your continued effort on this front. And I want to add my support to maintaining the level of federal participation that was anticipated when these projects were initially planned. Of course, we don't want to move the goalposts in the middle of the game. Can you provide your thoughts on how FTA will resolve the cost-sharing issues in keeping with those expectations of the local sponsors of these projects?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, being able to look at value capture, I think the industry as a whole tends to think of that as only tax increment financing, and we want to broaden that definition to include things like land deals, operation and maintenance costs, naming rights. We all recognize that transit brings value to our nation's communities, but sometimes we don't capture that value for transit. We sit at USDOT at the Navy Yard. That looks a whole lot different than it did 30-some years ago when I was first in D.C., and a lot of that is due to the Green Line coming in, that Metro line coming into that area, and yet none of that revenue was really, and that increase in value was really borne out to the transit agency. And so our commitment is to help the transit agency really capture that value that they bring to a community, because we know communities value transit. And we want to make sure that they capture that value and invite those private investors to the table so that we can have additional funding to be able to fund more projects across the entire country.
We need to do more to make the case for transit, not just as a way to move people to jobs and education and healthcare, but as an economic development tool. In my city, in my community, our initial 20-plus mile line of the light rail did result in $11 billion in public and private investment. I would argue that public transportation investment is as strong of an economic development tool as almost anything else that we can do at the local level and in partnership with the federal government. I yield back. Thank you.
I would agree.
Amen, Mr. Stanton.